welcome back to another episode of Both Sides Now with your hosts Alex Martin and Eve McCullum. We break down politics with the aim to break down political polarisation and get you engaged in the issues that matter. Been a somewhat calm week in politics this week, but we've got some big chats for you. We this week want to talk about celebrity politics, especially the announcement of Paul Henry running for the ACT Party. We want to talk about what's going on in the UK with Nigel Farage and Count Binface. And we're also going to take stock of where we're at in the election cycle. We're getting close to the regulated period, and we're going to see where our predictions from February stack up now. So before we get into that though, Eve, another week, you're done your trial. How are you doing? How's freedom?
Oh my God, freedom is so good. With trial we finished up on Tuesday, and I've now been able to catch up on all the TV that I haven't watched.
Excellent.
And I'm late to the party, but I've been binge watching Off Campus. Have you seen it?
No, but I have a friend, one of my best friends, who has watched it, I think, 8 times.
I can kind of see why. So I guess, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it yet and you plan on watching it, maybe skip past this. But at one level, it just follows your standard sort of like rom-com kind of like storyline. You know, they're kind of two people that shouldn't necessarily date. They end up meeting and they kind of fall in love, and then they have a happy relationship, and then they sort of break up for a while and they get back together. But what's really cool about it is that it's like done very much from the female perspective, and I guess trying to like highlight what females look for in men. And so like the two, like the lead male actor, putting aside the fact that he is so beautiful.
Oh.
Garrett Graham, he's like a big hockey bro and he lives in a frat with his other like ice hockey bros. But like the way he treats the female lead is really nice. Like he's very much focused on like what can he do to make her feel safe, and so that she trusts him, and how like, you know, how he can best please her. And it's a really nice kind of, I guess, counter to a lot of sort of stuff you see around what we think that men think that women want.
Yeah.
And it's also got some nice commentary around how women interact with other women. And so the lead character, Garrett Graham, was sort of seeing someone sort of casually at the beginning, and then he ends up dating the other girl who he's with for most of the TV show. But like the two girls don't have like a big rivalry. No one's really nasty to each other. You know, they don't pin them against each other, which again, like, is really nice, because often you get that sort of like the devilish woman, you know, that like she's the evil ex, and there was none of that, you know. And like the one that he was previously seeing was really nice to the new one, and it's just a really nice commentary, I think, on sort of social like relationships. And there's also deals with a couple of heavy topics, trigger warning, but around sexual assault and around family abuse as well. It is really good. I can like highly recommend it. And there's a whole series of books, so I've gone and bought one of the books.
Oh my God.
And I'm going to read the books. It's going to be like my new obsession.
That's wicked. Well, yeah, I feel like it has definitely for my mate, like total obsession. And she's actually like, it's all about hockey, right? Is it ice hockey or
ice
hockey?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's been getting into ice hockey, like actually going to ice hockey games. And it's, interesting what shows like heated rivalry and now Off Campus have really done for that sport. Like it's a really, I don't know, it's not a big thing.
It is a vicious sport though. Like
I think the men cuddle a little bit. Like they kind of like get into a few like fights and stuff like on the ice. Which like how scary is that? Because what the blades on their feet, that
I know
puts the absolute shits up me.
Yeah, I would never want to play it. I'm sure I'll go and watch it one day.
Yeah, we should go find it. I think the season's ending soon, but maybe we should.
Yeah. But yeah, no. If anyone's after a binge through this show, I think I like watch it all in like 2 days.
Oh my God.
It is so good. It's on Amazon Prime. There's a free 7-day trial, so I just did that.
Well done.
But yeah, definitely can recommend that.
Love. Okay, I'm gonna have to get onto it because this is several recommendations.
This will be your homework. You're gonna have to watch it.
Okay. We'll get back to you in a week or two, and I'll let you know how I've gone. I feel like what I'm watching at the moment. I'm watching House of the Dragon, which is being released on Mondays. Love Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, all that sort of stuff. You know, we watched it a lot in our flat
in Dunedin.
Yes. So good. I've also been watching. This might be a bit odd. Avatar, Legend of Korra. You know the Avatar we used to watch on like Nickelodeon and stuff, the sort of kids cartoon?
No.
Oh my God. Okay.
Good for you.
It's really cute. It's just a nice little like palate cleanser for the end of the day. Watch a little 20-minute episode and enjoy that. But I feel like I really struggle to get into new TV shows because it feels like such an effort to get stuck into something.
You won't take long to get stuck into off campus.
Okay, well, watch this space. And I guess lastly, Eve, we are off to the All Blacks Ireland game this evening.
Yes. Well, when this comes out, the game will have finished. But
Yeah.
here's hoping that they continue to defend the fortress of Eden Park.
My dad is a very anxious rugby watcher. He will not watch the game live, like on TV or anything, until he knows the outcome of the score, because the poor bloke is so anxious about it. And I get
What's
it.
he doing for 2 hours the game's on?
Well, he's probably just cooking dinner and bits and
so
pieces, and then he'll see the score and you're like, oh, okay, now I'll rewatch the game. I totally get it though, because having been to games at Eden Park, singular game, I think it was that game against South Africa last year, my heart rate, I am so scared. Like, I would just hate to be able to say that I was at the game where the All Blacks lost their 32 year.
Massive.
Yeah. So look, I have full faith and confidence in the All Blacks. I'm sure it'll be a good game against Ireland, and yeah, look forward to it. But honestly, Eve, I'm most looking forward to our cocktails with our friends before.
Yeah. I'm so excited for cheeky margarita and maybe even an espresso martini. Lastly on that though, that's so fascinating that your dad watches it on delay, because my dad would refuse to watch it anything but live.
Funny,
like,
yeah.
It has to be live.
No, I'm kind of, I feel like I'm with Grant on this one.
Yeah, it has to be live.
Yeah. I'd much rather watch it live.
It's probably slightly less fun things.
Yes, let's get into some celebrity politics, because this week the ACT Party announced a pretty infamous, I'm going to go with.
Yeah, by New Zealand standards.
Yeah, by New Zealand standards. Candidate running for their party. You may know of him, Paul Henry. Eve, thoughts and feelings?
I mean, as soon as I saw this, I was like, this is literally just to try and compete with New Zealand First. Because if you haven't been following, New Zealand First have been announcing a whole wide range of candidates. So they've got Taylor Randall, who is a former All Blacks captain. He's a probably relatively low profile compared to some of our other former All Blacks captains. They've announced Michael Laws. They've announced a few former National Party MPs, Alfred Naro, Hariti Haponga. And so there's kind of just all these sort of wild characters that are coming to New Zealand First, all on a ploy, I'm sure, to help get more media attention. And so, and ACT hasn't been polling that well. So it was, as soon as he was announced, I was like, this is obvious why they've done this.
Yeah.
To try and help compete with New Zealand First. And hey, it might give them a little boost.
Yeah, but I mean, like, when we spoke to Professor Andrew Geddes, one really like key takeaway I took from him, and I think it was his message about what he wanted voters to think about on November 7th when they're casting their votes, is to vote for the policies, not the people. And I think like there is a balance to be struck, because obviously the people are your representatives. There is an element of personality involved in politics, and you've got people who are leading their parties. You do want to know about them, what makes them tick, what drives them, all that sort of stuff. But there is a line and a balance to be drawn about like the actual policy. You can't just go, oh, I like Winston Peters because he talks about the things I like and he's whatever, you do actually have to engage, I think, in the bigger picture. And I don't think that these celebrity sort of politicians, or what they're trying to do is engaging in the actual policy and politics properly.
Well, if ACT polling goes up after this, it's literally nothing has changed but for having Paul Henry involved.
Yeah.
Like they haven't changed any policies, they haven't changed any, like the tactics for the election, it's all the same stuff. It's just they've now got Paul Henry, and so away they go.
And like, what do you think of Paul Henry? Because for me, the main thing I remember about Paul Henry, because he's been on our screens for as long as we can remember, is in 2010 when he had to go, he erupted into fits of laughter on like breakfast television about the name of the Delhi Chief Minister, Sheila Dixit. And it got to, like, TVNZ was fined for this by the Broadcasting Standards Authority. Like, he just nasty shit. Like,
yeah, my memory of him, actually, first real memory, was when he said to Prime Minister at the time, John Key, about our Governor-General, are you going to pick a Governor-General who is from New Zealand this time? So that's kind of my early memory. But it was interesting, I was talking to someone during the week who kind of used to work in media, and they were saying that apparently he's like the loveliest guy. Everyone who's worked with him adores him. And he's actually got a wide range of views, but he's just become most known for the sort of more extreme views, which I guess is more exciting for the media to pick up. But yeah, like I don't think it acts very much from what he says publicly seems like his natural home. I'm also just intrigued, to be honest, to see how he goes. Like being a backbench politician, and I like to say the backbench is a great equaliser, because whether you've been the CEO, whether you've been a teacher, no matter where you've been, you all go onto the backbench. Very few people go straight into cabinet. The odd one might, but most of them go to the backbench. And guess what? You have to sit in the house until 10 o'clock at night. If you're under urgency, you're sitting in the house till midnight. You know, you've got to be in Parliament. You can't leave Parliament's grounds for most of the time that the House is sitting. Between 2 and 10 p.m. you get an hour for dinner. But there's a lot of sort of mundane, sort of long hours and hard work that politicians do that we don't necessarily see and you wouldn't expect to. And there's a lot of stuff that's not in the limelight. So it's going to be fascinating to see how he goes with all the other uninteresting stuff. And the other point as well I think will be interesting is he going to be comfortable with not being the centre of attention? Because he's used to being the headline, you know? How's he going to go being potentially not relevant on a lot of things?
Well, he said he wants to become the broadcasting minister. He is very much eyeing up a place in cabinet, and I think a little bit of sense needs to be knocked in there, because that's not necessarily realistic.
And also, to be fair, if you look at the makeup of it, with Brooke Van Dalen going, depending on polling, but I've got 2 or 3 people in cabinet, so that'll be, unless David Seymour wants to really upset his other MPs, it'll be David Seymour, Nicole McKay as deputy, and then I'd have thought Karen Shaw, because she's currently outside cabinet with the Minister of Children's portfolio. So I just don't really see how that's going to go, and it's pretty uncommon for someone to go straight into Parliament as an MP if their party's in government and become a minister, particularly a cabinet minister. And I guess in case you don't know, you have what's called cabinet ministers. So cabinet's made up of 20 ministers, and then you have outside ministers that are outside cabinet. So they will have sort of your like slightly lower stakes portfolio. So a good example is James Meagher. He is a minister outside cabinet. He's got hunting and fishing. He's got South Island, and he's got associate transport. So they don't attend cabinet. I think they only attend cabinet if there's something particularly relevant to their portfolio. But otherwise, because cabinet meets every Monday afternoon, and you might see in the news that cabinet has like post-cabinet press conferences. But I'm just going to be very intrigued to see how it actually goes. And he also, even if he does theoretically get to be ranked highly in ACT, he's ranked highly still in a minor party. Like if you want to have a serious influence, I mean, granted that might change a bit with makeup of the government next time round, but generally he's still not in a major party, you know?
Well, I can't imagine what he would be like in opposition either. Like, let's be real. At the moment, and we'll talk about it later, election's a little bit too close to call. What happens if Labour is elected and Greens, Te Pāti Māori, maybe even Opportunity, and he's forced to be in opposition? I can't imagine him wanting to
you also
do that.
In opposition, this is, some people will agree with me more, but you can't really achieve a lot. You can kick up a stink about things the government are pushing through, and sometimes it has an effect, but a lot of times it doesn't. And the sort of stuff that he would probably want to achieve, he's going to be able to achieve none of it. He's not going to have an electorate of people to represent. So what's he going to do? And he's still going to have to be in Wellington 30 weeks a year.
Yeah. I would really like to caution voters who are thinking about voting for a political party based off a couple of key candidates who might have that New Zealand celebrity status. Which, like, first of all, what even is a New Zealand celebrity? You know what I mean?
Well, Paul Henry's a New Zealand celebrity.
Well, yeah, and not necessarily for the right reasons. Like, he's a celebrity because he's outspoken and he's charismatic and stuff. But, like, judge these people on their views and their beliefs and what they want to do. Like, I will judge him on the Sheila Dick shit of everything. I'll judge him on calling, like, Suzanne Boyle retarded, which is a word I abhor. Like, so many other bits and pieces. Like, just because you are good in front of a camera doesn't mean you're going to be great in the House of Representatives.
And this is what I always encourage people as well to think about, because I think because so much of politics now is, like, captured on film, so we see sort of, I guess, how politicians perform in front of a camera. But you also need to consider, like, don't vote for people just because they're a good public speaker as well, which isn't a similar line to Paul Henry. Like, you need to think about, does this person actually stand for values that I relate to? You know, are they intelligent? What can they actually achieve? Because I think that you can be a fantastic politician and not be a great public speaker, you know? And I think that, like, even though on the right side of politics, but like Bill English was someone who he developed into being a better speaker, but the camera wasn't necessarily his favourite place, but he achieved a lot behind the scenes as finance minister, and so don't just judge them on their ability to speak to the media.
I think a little bit of Barbara Edmonds in that sort of
Agree.
circumstance. I think incredible woman in my mind. I would love to see her as finance minister. Really down to earth. Loved chatting to her when we did. But I think she was being quite open about. She's like, I'm still getting used to being in front of cameras and stuff, and that's cool. That's awesome.
And so I think just because someone can spin a good speech, in front of a camera, doesn't mean they're going to be a good politician.
Can I speak to what he said in his announcement with David Seymour?
I've seen bits of it.
So I watched it because I was like, okay, what's the ACT Party going to say? I'll note that he was mulling over his decision to enter politics while he was on his private boat off the coast of Fiji, sipping a glass of wine. Okay, how representative is that of like ordinary New Zealand?
Maybe of ACT voters.
But one thing I found quite interesting, and it sort of felt a little bit off the cuff, was he started talking about this dream that he has of opening a cancer hospital in New Zealand.
I did, yeah.
Now, I would really encourage Paul Henry to take a trip down south to Dunedin and talk to the locals there about their experience in the political football that is now the Dunedin Hospital. And not just this government, but previous governments too, making cuts to a huge health infrastructure job. The health of the South is going to be far worse off for this political football of backwards and forwards and cuts of hospitals. Look, it's a big job, a lot of mahi that needs to go into it. It's not easy, so very big aspiration from Paul Henry there to open a cancer hospital. And then also, then he said, I think he was asked, like, how is such a cancer hospital going to be funded? He says, you could easily get a bunch of wealthy New Zealanders to stump up $10 billion easily and then fund the rest with public government money. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, so you agree the wealth needs to pay more of their fair share. It's like this sounds more of an endorsement for the Greens wealth tax than it does anything else. Like, come on.
Well, I did also think was interesting. I was watching him on Ryan Bridge, his interview on Ryan Bridge, and he was asked what his political idol was, and he said Helen Clark, which I was intrigued by because, like, whilst I don't agree with the politics, I think she was a very effective politician, but I wouldn't say she's my political idol. I just thought that was fascinating because now he's running for ACT. Helen Clark was his political idol.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I reckon this will get ACT a bit of a sugar hit now, but I think it'll come off. I don't think this is gonna move the dial significantly for them. They've been pretty disruptive and I think relatively ineffective this term in government, and I think that's kind of reflected in the fact that they're going down and New Zealand First is going up.
Yeah. Which warning sign there.
I know.
Hate that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, just I would kind of put a caution out there to any listeners who might be enticed or intrigued by this election announcement. I think if you look over to the United States, which has had a huge sort of influence of celebrities in politics, their president being the key prime example. Sure, his sort of charismatic sort of status and personality might have got him into the most top bloody political position in the world, arguably. But what's he actually done for the United States? Are they better off for it? I'm going to say no.
Yeah, but, I agree. I think look beyond it. If you want to vote for ACT, absolutely fine, but it needs to be based on the policies and what they're actually going to achieve, what they've achieved this term, not just because Paul Henry, you think it's funny that he's standing for ACT.
Yeah. So be wary of celebrity politicians, I would say.
Speaking of kind of celebrity politicians, we moved to the UK, which if you think New Zealand politics is a little bit like out hinged and out the gate, I think the UK probably tops that quite considerably. It makes me nervous because we're kind of a few years lagging behind the UK, so I'm a little bit worried about what we're going to end up with here. But Alex, you want to chat to Count Binface?
Count Binface. I hope people have been seeing this on their social media as much as I have. Maybe it might be the bubble that I'm in, I don't know. But let's wind it back a little bit and talk about who this Count Binface fellow is and why he's being spoken about. So, some news in the past couple of weeks has been about the infamous Nigel Farage, which is the United Kingdom's far-right populist politician.
Essentially the United Kingdom's version of Donald Trump.
Yeah. Or Winston Peters.
Yeah,
well, so inclined.
When Winston Peters met to the UK semi-recently, the first person he met with was Nigel Farage. So that speaks to all.
Indeed. So let's just quickly define populism. It's this sort of ideology or a phenomenon, would you sort of say, which really kind of pits this us versus them mentality of things. So you might see it in like the ordinary common people versus the sort of corrupt self-serving elite, or the people versus the institution, and we have to go against them. The things can't coexist. It's got to be one or the other. And you do see this across the political spectrum. It's not necessarily confined to just right-wing politics.
Yeah, there's definitely left-wing populism as well.
100%. But definitely, I think in like a sort of post-Trump sort of world, I think right-wing politicians are kind of leaning into it a bit more.
Yeah, I'd agree.
You see this in Australia with, say, like Pauline Hanson, who has a go at immigration, Islam, and Indigenous Australians. See it in the United States with Donald Trump, having a go at mainstream media and things. And then, in New Zealand with Shane Jones calling out a butter chicken tsunami, or Winston Peters importing that sort of US political style of...
You only have to go and look at Winston Peters' Facebook page, which I don't really think you want to do. But if you do, read some of the posts on there. It uses that sort of incel type wording. Like it reads like something Donald Trump would write.
Yeah.
So if you want to ruin your day, go and read that.
Oh, God forbid the woke, blue-haired, lanyard-wearing leftists. God, anyway.
Yeah.
So the UK is not immune. They have their political populist vice, Nigel Farage, and he is the leader of the far-right political party Reform UK. And he, I think, is quite infamous because of about a decade ago with Brexit. Yeah. He essentially really, really harnessed and formed that conversation of us versus them in terms of the hardworking UK people and the European Union, and how much money was being sent off from the hardworking UK people to the European Union. And I think 10 years on, we can kind of look back and go, ooh, you fucked that up. That was not the
Yeah, I think it's pretty well conceded on from probably, I'd say from the centre right to the left. I think we'd probably concede that Brexit wasn't a good idea. I think the far right would still say it was a good idea, but it's ruined their economy.
Yeah, no good. So 10 years on, what's Farage been up to? Well, he was elected as the MP for an electorate named Clacton, and his party, Reform, slowly growing in popularity. But at the moment, Nigel Farage is under investigation for a $5 million gift by a Thailand-based cryptocurrency billionaire named Christopher Harborn. And he is also under investigation for another donation received from a guy called Posh George, they call him. I think his name is George Cottrell, who is a British aristocrat and has been found guilty of money laundering, got caught up in a money laundering sting, and then also has been convicted of wire fraud. So not a good dude. Also calls Nigel Farage daddy, apparently.
Oh, that's really weird.
Yeah, really, really weird. So, okay, so you've got this political donation, huge $5 million political donation. And the UK rules, kind of like New Zealand, sort of stipulate that you've got to declare these gifts over a certain amount in the specified time, except where a gift could be, I think, could not be reasonably thought by others to relate to their political activities. So this has kind of been going on in the background. The Parliament's investigating him, and Nigel Farage, in this sort of tactic to sort of draw the attention away from him on this big scandal, has resigned as the MP for Clacton. Huzzah! What great news! Oh, just kidding. He's running in the by-election that he himself has triggered. What the heck?
And also, just for context as well, the problem, what's problematic about that is by-elections cost the taxpayer quite a bit of money.
So much money.
And so the government's got to pay to run this by-election that he's just running in anyway.
So stupid. And I think his thinking behind this is this whole investigation is going on, and I think it's on pause because he has resigned. But if the people of Clacton re-elect me, that gives him legitimacy. It goes, oh, okay, well, the people don't think I've done anything wrong, and they've re-elected me. It's the establishments, it's them that are the problem. What's really fucking funny though, sorry, I shouldn't swear. What's really funny though is that the major UK political parties, so the Tories or the Conservatives, Labour, Greens, Lib Dems, have all announced that they will not be running in this by-election, which has really, I think, taken the wind out of his sails in terms
Agreed.
of the conversation that he wants, the narrative that he wants to have.
Yeah.
Super duper funny. Now, there are apparently 34 candidates now running in the Clacton by-election, which I think is the most ever, or at least the most candidates since like 2008 or something like
That's
that.
outrageous.
But by far, the most talked about candidate is Count Binface. Have you seen some of this stuff?
I have seen some of the stuff. It's quite amusing.
It is really amusing. You've got the British Prime Minister even going, well, outgoing Prime Minister, I should say, kind of rooting for the bin. And it is seriously hilarious because now you've got this silly, populist, far-right politician arguing with a bin, a satire candidate. Now, Count Binface is somebody who stands in a few, he's done quite a few UK elections. He, I think, received about 24,000 votes in the London mayoralty thing.
That's pretty respectable.
Pretty respectable. He is an independent space warrior from the planet Sigma 9 or something. I could be wrong on that, but something like that. He's got there's lore to him. He's got a whole backstory. And he obviously wears this big bin-shaped
trash can type, but yeah.
Bloody funny. Now, he said when he was asked what, his main appeal is for this by-election, he just said, quite frankly, I'm not Nigel Farage. And, that pretty much encapsulates it. I feel like it's like, who do you want? This guy who treats politics like an absolute circus, or this guy who, appears to treat politics like a circus, but actually, I think, is really navigating this conversation using the power of absurdity to draw attention to the chaos and disrupt these normal conversations about what we think and what we know about politics.
Has there been any polling done? Do we know if the Count Binface is going to get close?
Should we have a look? Okay, we're back. We've had a quick Google. We had a quick look at where there's any polling done. We have managed to find an Ipsos poll that, I haven't looked into who has been polled here, if it's actually the people of Clacton or not. But they've got Count Binface on 33%, Farage on 21%, neither on 32%, and 13% say, I don't know.
Christ.
It's it's a lot closer.
That's a lot closer than you'd expect with a satire politician to be. So watch the space. This is going to be quite interesting to see.
It is going to be interesting to see. I'm not entirely sure when the by-election is. It must be coming up reasonably soon. But I just think this power of satire and being able to, draw attention to the absurdity in politics is actually quite healthy for our democracy. I read a really interesting article by a professor, I think, in the UK. Hold on, let me find her name. Her name is Dr. Tina Monk. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And she said that people like Count Binface, they're using defensive mimetic warfare, the creating of and sharing of humour, satire and participatory memes to redirect political attention and interrupt agenda setting rather than to attack or insult opponents. I just think Count Binface is asking us to question the narratives unfolding around politics, and it's actually quite a constructive debate, even though the whole thing is ludicrous.
But also, I guess it's understandable and relatable.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where some of the mainstream political parties struggle a bit, because they know that what's coming out of these populist parties is nonsense, and they know that it's harmful, but they struggle to counteract it. And I think it's because to actually explain it and understand why it's harmful takes a lot of work, and I think people don't have the time to be able to grasp it, whereas Count Binface, I think, is such an effective way of grasping it and being like, see, look how ridiculous the situation is.
Yeah, and it is also quite funny because, what happens if Count Binface were to be elected? Can I read you some of his policies?
Go on.
One thing I really enjoy that I had a look at, they say, tries in rugby league to be increased from 4 points to 5 in line with inflation. That's funny. He wants to nationalise Adele. He wants to cap Wigan kebabs at £2. He wants to build at least one affordable house. and he wants to cut your taxes and raise everyone else's. So, look, obviously it's all a bit of a laugh and a half, but a lot of funny stuff in there.
I agree. So bringing politics back to New Zealand now, we thought we'd do a quick update on our policy predictions heading into the regulated period. So the regulated period starts on 7th of August, which basically means the last 3 months leading into the election, parties have a cap on how much they're allowed to spend. This is just to try and even it out. You can't allow sort of, parties to get a whole lot of money suddenly and spend millions and millions of dollars. I think each electorate MPs or electorate candidate's allowed to spend about $30,000. And it also means that the media have to report sort of more evenly on the different political parties. So you will start to see a lot more of Chris Hipkins, Labour, and the other opposition parties in the media. But we thought we should tell you sort of how we think the election campaign's going so far. Obviously, we're 3 and a bit months out from the election, but I feel like there's been a lot that's happening. And I was talking to someone during the week, and she was like, it's giving 2014 vibes, which, if anyone remembers, was when we had the internet mana circus with Kim.com and Hone Harawira. And I kind of think that I can kind of relate to that because it does feel like there's just a lot going on. The political parties are a bit all over the place and it's not totally clear who's going to get back in. And so I guess probably the sort of key things we'd update on, leader changes. Do we think we're going to see any of those?
I am going to stay with my prediction back in February or whenever we did this and say no leadership changes. I think if it were to happen, it would have happened. I think it's too late now, too dangerous. Granted, Jacinda Ardern, there was a leadership change in
6 weeks out or something. Yeah.
And she was elected, but But I don't think we're going to see any leadership changes, though I do think there might still be some rumblings and questions, which I guess are always fair and reasonable, of the leaders, especially of, I think, National and Labour.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. Definitely. I think that they'll always roll all the way through. And I think that Labour and National would be silly to change their leaders now unless something really big happens. So we'll caveat with that. Electorates to watch. So we did a bit of an electorates to watch at the start and we did our policy predictions. There are a couple of new ones just because of candidates who are now running. So the first one I wanted to touch on was Te Tai Tokerau, which is the Māori seat from sort of Northland. Yeah. So we've got some really interesting candidates there. Maramino Kapōkingi, who was Te Pāti Māori MP. She is now running it for part of her new party. We've got Willow June Prime for Labour. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of this, but Apira Hama Edwards for Te Pāti Māori and Huhana Linden for the Greens. So I think there's going to be a really interesting race.
Yeah.
Mount Albert,
definitely one to watch. Kulei Wong, leader of Opportunity Party, has announced her two-tick campaign for the Mount Albert seat, which I would say is very brave because that is a safe Labour seat. Even with the absolute wash of the 2023 election, Helen White was able to and I mean by tens of votes.
Yeah, not very much
at all. Like 23 or something like that, which, goes to show if you think your vote does not count and you're just a number, small fish, big pond type beat, no, because it can and absolutely might get down to the absolute wire like it did in 2023. But yeah, Mount Albert, quite brave, I'm sure. I think it's Ricardo Menendez March for the Greens will also be in the Mount Albert candidacy.
Melissa Lee at this stage still running for National, and then obviously Helen White, the sitting MP. So that'll be an interesting seat to watch. I'm interested to see also who Kulei takes votes off.
Yeah, it will be. Do you think there'll be any vote splitting? Because I think there's a lot of rumblings about Opportunity taking votes from the left, from Labour.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of their votes are coming from. And then there'll be the unhappy blue-green voters in National, but a little bit as well, potentially. And then some of your real hardcore environmentalists in the Greens as well, who feel the Greens have lost their way. I would love to do a poll. This is so nerdy. A poll on who's voting for Opportunity, though.
Yeah, I want the details. Who's going to vote for it?
Where their vote's coming from. Other seats, I thought the 2 seats in Hawke's Bay, so Tuki and Napier, they've both had interesting candidates announced. So we've seen Tuki has got Tane Randall running. Catherine Weed's majority as the National sitting MP is massive, but I think that he'll take a few votes, but I think that she'll be fine. The other one is Napier as well with Katie Nimmin, also a National MP. I think that this seat, traditionally has been a Labour seat. National didn't win it first until I think 2008 maybe. I do think that Stuart Nash will take a lot of votes off her on the basis that he previously held that seat when he was with Labour.
Yeah.
However, I think he's probably done enough damage to his own reputation that I think that he'll struggle to get there. If he hadn't done so much damage to himself and shot himself in both feet multiple occasions, then maybe not. But I think that it'll still be an interesting seat to watch. And he may split the vote on the right and allow, I don't know who the Labour candidate is, but allow for a Labour person to come through. Your personal seat, your seat of Mount Roskill?
Yeah, so with some boundary changes, this year I will be in the Mount Roskill electorate. So I'm not sure who else has been announced, but I think it'll be between Carlos Chung for National and Michael Wood for Labour, who is making his reappearance back into politics. And I think he's been quite ambitious. He's wanting to door knock every single door in the Mount Roskill electorate. Have received a flyer at my door, so I wonder if he's visited.
You wouldn't have been home. Yeah,
no.
Having someone who does door knocking, that'll be what's happened.
So yeah, I think Michael Wood probably hasn't tarnished his reputation as far as, say, somebody like Stuart Nash has, and I think he has a bit more of a realistic opportunity of re-entering Parliament as an electorate MP for Labour. I think he cares a lot about Mount Roskill. But yeah, I don't know, definitely one to watch as well, given that it went National's way in 2023.
Yep, I agree. Election night, what are we thinking? I initially thought National wouldn't get at least 34%, and I really just...
Ruh-roh.
The latest poll on 28, what are we thinking? What's the makeup going to be on E-night?
Well, I genuinely think it's just too close to call at the moment. It is a lot closer than I'm sure a lot of us would have anticipated.
Yeah.
Granted, yeah, we've got 3 and a bit months still out. There's a lot of water to still flow under the bridge. But I think it's going to be a real hinge on whether Opportunity gets into Parliament or not, reaches that 5% threshold.
Yeah, I was going to say that too, because I think that on most of the polls at the moment, the odd one, but most of the polls at the moment have the right bloc still governing. So what will be more interesting, I guess, is the makeup. So how many seats National lose and how many seats, God forbid, New Zealand first gain.
Yeah.
But if Opportunity come into Parliament, that adds a whole other dynamic, because they will probably, the numbers being so close as they always are in the MMP between the left and the right bloc, will essentially, hopefully, be kingmaker, which I just think would be quite entertaining. And so that'll suddenly give the left a credible option of someone they can go with, because I think Te Pāti Māori, I suspect, will lose most of the Māori seats. They might have 1 or 2.
You reckon?
Yep, I reckon they're going to have 1 or 2. I think they'll hold Hana's one, and I think they'll hold Rawiri's one, which is the Rotorua one. I think they're going to lose a lot of the rest of them.
No, see, because I reckon that Tanya Waikato from the Green Party, who I'm pretty sure is also running in Rawiri's electorate, I think she has a good shot at it.
That'd be awesome.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I just think with all the happenings that have gone on this time round, I think that Te Pāti Māori will lose a lot of their seats. But with Opportunity coming in, and they're pretty close. There was a poll out this week, 4.7% RNZ research.
Yeah.
I think that would really change the dynamic. If they don't get in, I think it'll probably still be a right bloc governing. It's looking pretty strong that way. But yeah.
I think, recent polling tends to show that Labour will be the biggest party in Parliament, but also not that far ahead from National. But despite that, not able to form a majority with their coalition partners. So while you might see the odd headline saying Labour's going to be the biggest party in Parliament, don't take that necessarily at face value and think that they're going to become that government, because they, at this point of time, do not have the numbers to be able to form that majority.
And I think, as well, this isn't uncommon. So in 2017, when Labour came into power, National were the biggest party in Parliament by quite a lot above Labour.
Yeah.
But because New Zealand First were the kingmaker and how it works under MMP, doesn't matter. You've still got to form a coalition, and Winston Peters went with Labour instead of National. So it's not unheard of that we see the biggest party not being in government.
Yes. I think they called that the coalition of losers, or like the government of losers or something, because they had minority % of votes or whatever.
But I think election night is going to be fascinating.
It's going to be tense. It's definitely heating up. And I'm a bit nervous, but I'm very excited.
So moving on to our last part for the podcast, social media moment of the week. Quite a fun one this week with Tamitha Paul. So she has been up in the UK on a parliamentary trip. They've taken, I think, an MP from each party, and they've gone to visit parliaments in different parts of the UK. So they've been in London, they've been, I think, in Wales and Scotland, and visiting their parliaments over there, which is really cool. And she was at a dinner or a function with some people in London, and as someone very senior in the United Kingdom politics, his name escapes me, but anyway, they were giving gifts, And she put up a video on social media sort of talking about this. And she said, everyone was kind of giving the traditional sort of Kiwi gifts. And then turned out this guy was talking about how much she enjoyed league. And and she was like, oh, well, I guess she was like, I don't know what I have in my bag. She had a Wars jersey. She gave him a Wars jersey and he was stoked.
Like, I think attention dropped from any of the gifts that had been received before that. Full attention on, I think also like quite a retro Warriors, like mean jersey.
Yeah.
And yeah, could not stop talking about it. And it was just one of those interactions where sports and politics mixes, and it's actually quite a good thing, quite a like wholesome thing. And I think also as a result, Tamitha Paul followed that up on her Instagram stories and was like, oh my God, Dallin Watene-Zelezniak from the Warriors is now following her on Instagram. So she was like, hey.
I thought this was such a cool interaction because I think, there's obviously been a lot of sort of history between, Māori and the British Crown. And as you said, it was nice to see how kind of sports does bring us together. And we do have these sort of common grounds that we can find with people who are just miles apart. Like this person could not have been further different from Tamitha Paul and what she experiences in New Zealand. And so, I just thought it was so cool that it was something that is so simple yet brings us all together.
Crazy that it's rugby league and not rugby union because, you know us, we have our preferences. But still goes to show just how important sport can be in that sort of cultural dynamic, societal dynamic, and how we view the world as a whole.
And also for the Warriors, that, their brand has reached that far, right? All around the world.
Global, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, before we finish up, I just wanted to sort of acknowledge been a couple of passings away this week in New Zealand. So first of all, Sam Neill passed away at the start of the week.
Yeah.
So Sir Sam Neill, as he was. He was sort of, I guess, a legend in New Zealand television and movies.
That is a New Zealand celebrity. There you go.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
He'd done a lot of work, not only obviously in the sort of the film industry, but he's also sort of done a lot of kind of other work in charities. I think he was quite big in conservation. So, that was very, very sad for New Zealand. And the other person as well who's passed away, who many of you probably won't know who he is, but Bill Birch. So Bill Birch was the finance minister under Rod Muldoon, who you might have heard us mention every now and again. He was a National Party Prime Minister. And Bill Birch was the finance minister at the time who was the architect of Think Big, which is essentially all these big projects around New Zealand, which went on in the 70s and early 80s to try and, I guess, help get things in New Zealand moving. And at the time, it was like, what? But things like Think Big, for example, like a classic is the Clyde Dam. So a lot of what we have today in New Zealand that we know sort of to help our big energy, big energy security, the big dams, that sort of stuff, all came a result of this. A lot of it came as a result of this big Think Big project. And Bill Birch was kind of the architect of that. So I just think it's important to acknowledge his massive contribution he made to New Zealand that is still felt today, and the work that he's done.
Yeah, moi mai rā e rangatira to both of those real chiefs, I think, in New Zealand, have really carved their own paths and led the way for a lot of the successes that we get to experience today in some way, shape or form. And so, yeah, bit of a solemn end to this week's episode, I guess, but definitely worthy of recognition and celebration of some pretty spectacular lives.
And two great New Zealanders who I guess we owe a lot to in New Zealand.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, we wish you all the best for the week ahead. Please follow us, give us a follow on social media. You can find us on Instagram, bothsidesnow_NZ, or on TikTok as well if you are so inclined. Give us a follow, shout it out to your friends, and otherwise we will see you next week for another episode. Ka kite!